G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. So it's a little bit of a different sort of combination today. You can see the grid there. It is a full grid of Suzuki Swifts, 2007 model Suzuki Swifts. Of course an N100 car in the game, and we're on Nurburgring Nordschleife. So of course the Nordschleife is just the full northern loop, not the GP circuit down the bottom. So, of course, the Nordschleife, you turn right at the end of this little straight I'm on right now, and if you were to go on the GP, you'd go straight ahead onto the GP main straight. So we turn right here, and you can just see up ahead that tarmac on the left. That's where the GP once again joins the Nordschleife. But we are skipping the GP circuit today, so it simply is a N100 sprint around Nordschleife. We're going to do 2 laps of it in the Suzuki Swifts. It's actually race C, so there's fuel and tyre wear, but they're pretty much negligible. As you'll see throughout the race, my tyre and fuel will go down, but it's not enough to make a pit stop. Just fast forward this little bit here, as nothing much happened in the opening of the race, but so this combination, I actually don't mind the Suzuki Swift as a car. If I was to buy sort of a small car in real life, I don't mind the look of the Suzuki Swift. But I'll interrupt myself there. You just see the yellow and the silver cars up ahead, just getting a little bit bumpy. And as you go into the Adenauer Force chicane, you can just see it gets a little bit out of shape between the silver and the yellow Suzuki. There's a white Suzuki on the left-hand side that was slow, but you can see just how narrow the track is. 2 cars wide, and there's nowhere to go. I just have to brake. There's literally nowhere for me to go. I could have gone up the middle of them, I guess, but I would have had to push them out of the way. One of them probably would have ended up off the track, and I would have ended up with a penalty. Now, the sort of... actually, I just get bundled off by the silver. Suzuki just comes back on, smashes the yellow one off the track. That was quite a funny turn of events. You can just see just how narrow it is. We get the green car literally on the grass trying to overtake. That's how narrow it is. But he just pushes the silver one off, and I managed to capitalise on that and making my way up into 10th position. So as we come down the hill now, it's kind of one of the slower parts of the track. Well, when I finish this corner, you'll see just how much I have to brake. And that car behind, Ocon Yan, he wasn't having a good time. And you can see coming down here, just get a massive punt. There was no attempt to brake at all, so you can hear the guy was Okayan with the 4-second penalty. He was obviously quite frustrated with the way his race was going down, so I managed to get absolutely smashed in the rear end by him. Obviously the pizzas would be destroyed by now, and I have to offer every customer their refund, and hopefully I get a bit of a refund for that if he manages to make his way up ahead of me. But we filter back in 14th position, so really not good. But as we come through the Kittelbacher Hohe, of course, Hohe means straight in German, we're in the slipstream. So of course these cars don't quite have the sort of the aero work that GT cars have, obviously, but slipstream does still play a little bit of a role, but it's not quite as strong. Doesn't feel very strong in the cars, so slipstream does matter down straights. You will gain eventually, but it's not like GT cars where as soon as you get into the slipstream you can notice a gain straight away. But coming through Schwedenkrautz, I think is how you pronounce it, we're right on the bumper of this guy ahead, Lala's 33 Vab, and he brakes just a little bit late, and he lifts actually. I don't know why he lifted. He'd already broken a little bit late, and it bins him off the track. It's quite an easy place to go off. You've got to brake really early in road cars to pull it up in time for the tight right-hander of Arenberg. But, of course, we managed to make our way up into 13th position. We skip ahead to the end of the lap, where we can see for the first time the sort of Tiergarten section. And see how sort of tricky the braking zone is. You've got to brake before the left-hander, brake all the way through the left-hander, and trail brake into the right-hander, which has a left-hander following, and then the final right-hander of the circuit. Do you see how complex that final bit is? We actually managed to go a little bit wide through the final corner. Really easy to do if you're kind of tentative going up against that wall, but we bring it home in 13th place. So that's not a good race, but I'm not going to take the blame for it this time, as I was extremely clearly punted in the rear end by Okayan there. But we see the... oh, you didn't quite catch the total time, sorry. But we'll move on, because we did do a few races around here. So this is the second race. Now what I did qualifying wise, you didn't see a qualifying lap from me. A, because it's like 9 minutes long, and that would be a whole video in itself, basically. And I really couldn't be bothered. There wasn't enough time between sort of times of between race times to fit another qualifying lap. You had about 7 minutes between each slot, and of course a lap takes about 9 minutes. So that's why I didn't do a qualifying time. I set 9:13, not that great, but I figure the pack's pretty close, so I can make up quite a few positions. And you can see the standing start there, a little bit of traction control. Normally don't need it in these cars, but front wheel drives can drag their sort of spin their front tyres up trying to accelerate, so that's why I use traction control there. But of course we haven't talked about the Suzuki Swift. So it was introduced in the game in update 1.10, so very early in the sort of update lifetime of Gran Turismo Sport, and it has 123 horsepower. You can buy it from Brand Central for 16,300 credits. So it's actually one of the cheapest cars in the game. But of course it's just a simple road-going hatchback. You're not going to pay, what, 20 million for it? But we actually get a punt in the rear end going towards Nurburgring, so that's a clear-cut penalty by the guy in 8th place. He punted me, immediate penalty. So the game is pretty clear about what you can and can't do at that particular point there. But there was someone else binned off the track, so I'm not doing it alone. But you can just see I lose so much momentum going down the straight here, and we actually get overtaken by Hanna Geico Guzin in 10th place currently in the white Suzuki there, and we break up towards what is it, Adenauer Force chicane. Right, so Nordschleife, it's a massive track, 20.8 kilometers long, a massive main straight of 2.135 kilometers. That's the Dottinger Höhe at the end of the lap. It has 154 turns, estimated 154 turns. No one can really be bothered to count them, and there's about 3 different official figures for number of turns of the Nordschleife. And it has elevation change of 300 meters, so it's a roller coaster basically. The Green Hell, so it's called. And of course, this is the track that featured in my very, very first video of actual gameplay on the channel. You can go and have a look at that. It'll be linked up in the card at the top. But you can just see that Hanna gets it a little bit out of shape going through Kallenhard there, and we managed to make our way up into 10th from 11th place. There's a penalty up ahead, the guy in 8th place, so hopefully we'll get up a position from him when he serves that. There's only one set of penalty gate around the entire lap. It's basically a 10-minute lap, and there's only one penalty gate. Someone's just parked on the left-hand side there, broken down. Obviously didn't get their pizzas in time considering I'm so far back. But I just get a left-hand wheel on the grass into the braking zone of Brunken, and we just lose that position again to Hanna. So we're kind of fighting with Hanna a bit, which is good. I always want to be kind of in a fight for a daily race C in a lower class car, especially considering how boring it can get when you're on your own, as in so boring you're on the verge of quitting. But here, look what they do here. I say they, I don't know whether it's Hanna, as in a German name for Hannah, but oh well. So what you can do in the game, you can pause, and it sort of ghosts your car out for the duration of while you're paused, but it'll disqualify you eventually if you pause for like 30 seconds or something. You'll be disqualified from the race. But it's just so I can ghost through him, and I get ahead, but you can just see they did it at a very strategic time coming through Flansgarden 2, where now they're about 5/10 behind going onto this straight, and that's really where you want to be. So this guy that I'm coming up, approaching now, he got the 3-second penalty for punting me through Nurburgring. But coming through there, you can see that Hanna 2/10 behind, so this is slipstream. You can see down in the radar now, gaining. I've got the hazards on just to let them know that I'm aware of their presence. Goes for the move down the inside. Of course, inside because the next corner is a left-hander, and that would be the inside. And he manages to just slipstream straight back past me. So of course, if I was behind him, going on the beginning of the straight, that's a over 2 kilometer run down there. So I would have been able to slipstream back past, of course, now being ahead, coming through the first pretty much 80 kilometers of the Nordschleife. But that tactic of just letting me past just before the straight has allowed Hannah to keep that position there. Of course, I think that's a valid move there. Of course, obviously you can't pause in real life and have your car ghost out. You have to genuinely let them pass. But I think that's okay. I think that's a fair race move. Of course, anyone can do that, so it's fair against everyone. But we managed to be in 9th place at the beginning of the second and final lap. So you can see what I mean about fuel and tyre use. Have a look down in the bottom left. Actually, we'll have a look at some action first, going down towards Arenberg. Hannah just goes a little bit deep going through Arenberg, so you can just see what I mean by how easy it is to go deep on that particular portion of the track. And of course that gap that they worked so hard to sort of stretch out at the beginning of the lap has been undone by simple going deep in Arenberg. So we're back onto the bumper of Hannah there, but you can just see how narrow the Nordschleife is. There's no way past even going in a straight line, and coming up towards the Tiergarten chicane, it's actually a really tight part of the track, especially that uphill left-hander over a crest. You can see the differing lines going through the chicane here, but it doesn't really lead to an overtake there, as I think I'd take a little bit too much curb on that final right-hander, and I don't quite get the gain out of it. But I'm still in the slipstream, 4 tenths behind. Let's see. I guess my main rival from here to the end of the race is Hannah now. I guess if I beat Hannah, I've done well. Because obviously 19 seconds off the leader, not quite going to happen unless there's an 8-car pile-up on the final corner, where they're all ghosted out and I'm the only one that survives, which is a lot of variables in it. I can tell you it's probably not going to happen. We're going to go through Kallenhard now. Hannah just gets a little bit wide through there. He's on the grass, not quite able to accelerate as quickly as you can if you're on the tarmac. We go through the little downhill section now. Now this corner is really hard. Of course, most of my braking is done when the red gear number down the bottom starts flashing. It doesn't flash for that corner though. So I was quite often found myself going deep, and this is how you take Wursefine, is what the section of the track is called. That's how you take it through there. So you brake nice and you brake a lot, about 80 k's an hour before the final really tight left-hander, and then you accelerate out. Second gear corner it is. So that's how you're supposed to take it. You're not supposed to slow halfway down and get a massive pun in the rear end by someone who just frankly has just got sick of the race. But you can see Hannah just goes a little bit deep going through Bridesheed there, and I managed to make my way past. But we're going to fast forward down the straight, have a look at the gaps ahead. So we managed to streak out a gap against Hannah, but towards the end of the straight you can see we were about 1.1 seconds behind, and Hannah was still in slipstream. So I think slipstream is set to weak, which is actually stronger than when slipstream is set to real. Most often it is set to real, but in slower cars I find that Polyphony often set it to weak, just sort of keep the pack together, I think, is their reasoning behind that. But going through the Kesselchen and Klosterdal straights now, Hannah is actually right on my bumper. So now we're on to the final sort of, or second to last main sort of section of the lap, I guess. So a twisty section after the carousel. Of course, the carousel is this pretty much really slow banked left-hander, although of course it's artificial banking. You'll see what I mean. Have a look at this. Go a little bit wide through there. You really want to ride that camber. You can get on the power nice and early and sort of get a lot of acceleration done while you're still in the main portion of the corner. But now my main focus is to try and streak out a gap against Hannah here. So of course that's taking more speed through the corners, getting on the power just that fraction of a second earlier than Hannah through the final sector here, and hopefully that hopefully that can lead to me staying ahead by the end of the straight. So slipstream set to weak. I think 1.5 seconds back you're safe from being able to overtake at the end of that long straight, but I want to see if I can get to 2. If you're 2 seconds ahead, you're very safe from slipstream. I think you can get a little bit of slipstream, still 1.5 seconds back. So basically through this section now, you can, while you have a look at this section, as we actually haven't driven through here in this video, I've all edited it out previously, but just keep an eye on that gap between me and Hannah. Of course, that's the black and the white number on the black background. Under my flag, shown on the left-hand side of the screen, we actually slide through Brunken there a little bit, and that just sort of, it's not not how you get a gap, I can tell you. But you can see Hannah's actually got a little bit out of shape, got a half second of penalty, and just touches the gravel on the exit there, so we don't have to worry about them anymore. They're going to serve the penalty at the very start of the Dottingerhohe there, and of course is not going to be able to get that momentum back up. So in these slow cars, a penalty at the start of that straight is so damaging, even half a second. As by the end of the straight, the car is struggling to reach 200 k's. But if you get a penalty, even half a second, you're not going to ever get up to the speed of another car that didn't have a penalty. You're never going to reach the speed of that, even by the end of the straight. So you're going to lose time through that entire straight, which is about 1.5 minutes in these cars. And it's over 2 kilometers, I've said it before. So we don't have to worry about Hannah anymore, but we're going to worry about Enterdon, which is a guy ahead of me now. And you can just see he gets a little bit out of shape coming through Pflanzgarten 2 and through these couple of corners. Now this is Klein's carousel. Of course, Klein's directly translates to small in German, so it's literally small carousel. As you can see, that's exactly what it was. That was the left-hander there. But this is the final right-hander, and I think there's a little bit of a lift. No, I actually keep it flat through there. No, it's flat. So your best run, so of course the best run down the straight is getting the earliest possible time on the power, if that made sense at all. I don't think it did. I'll start that again. To get the best run down a straight, you have to be the earliest on the power coming out of a corner previous to the straight. Now, because the final right-hander was actually flat out, you have to be earliest on the power coming out of the Klein's carousel to get the best run down the straight. Now, this is what I mean by slipstream. It's a factor, but it's not very strong. So I'm behind Enterdon now, and you can see we're 8 tenths behind. It is slowly closing as we go down the straight, because it's because I wasn't quite close enough coming through the final corner before the straight. But we're 8 tenths behind, so we are in slipstream, but really I want to be pretty much 7. If you want to put a nice slipstream overtake going down the straight, you really want to be even 6.5, 7 tenths behind coming out of that final corner there. But let's see, can we get him to the braking zone? Almost look up the inside there. We're right on his bumper now. He obviously just braked a little bit too much for the final chicane there. Coming through the final corner, is he going to go wide? No, we're actually not going to manage to get that position from Enterdon. We managed to finish up with 2 tenths between us. So that was actually a good little fight down the end. I was following his slipstream pretty much exactly, and that's really what you got to do to get a good overtake down the straight there. But it's okay, we managed to raise 1 position, and that's sort of how the races normally go around here in N100. But that is the end of the video, as you can see, and that means I'm going to stop talking for you. So I do thank you for getting this far into the video. It means a lot to know that you guys like to watch all the way to the end. It makes me want to keep doing this. Do let me know that you liked it by hitting that like button. That's what it's for, and I do urge you to subscribe if you'd like to see amazing videos like this in your subscription box every week. But that is the end of the video today, and that means that is it from me. And once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.